By now, I'm sure you've heard of the massively popular series written by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski. It's basically become a national treasure of Poland. They even got their own official stamp featuring Geralt. Whether you've been introduced through the amazing video games by CD Projekt Red, the tabletop game, the graphic novels, or maybe news of the upcoming TV show, the Witcher Saga all started with the books. Now, Blood of Elves is labeled as Book 1, but you should actually read both short story collections beforehand, starting with The Last Wish. Which is kind of deceiving since it's got last in the title. This confusion has led many people to skip over the short story collections entirely, which is why I'm here to let you know if The Last Wish is worth a read.
So it begins.
This is the very first episode of my new series, Worth a Read, where I'll give you a spoiler-free description of a book, give you my opinions on various aspects, and let you know if I think it's worth your time. So you know a while ago when I said the saga all started with the books? That was a lie. Before these two collections were compiled, the stories were originally published in the Polish science fiction and fantasy magazine Fantastica in the 1980s. It wasn't until 2007 that The Last Wish was translated and published in English. And we had to wait until 2018 to see the final book translated. Now, it's important to note that if you've played the games, they are not direct adaptations. They are spin-offs taking place years after the final book. Matter of fact, in the first game, Geralt wakes up from amnesia and doesn't remember any of the events that happened in the books. Yeah, let's give him amnesia. But seriously, if you haven't played them, the games are amazing, especially the second and the third game. The first one hasn't aged too well. I still have a soft spot for it, but it's not for everyone. Now, I didn't do this, but I would recommend reading the books first, since you'll pick up on a lot of the references. Anyway, we're talking about The Last Wish. This collection contains 6 short stories following Geralt of Rivia. Geralt is a witcher, not to be mistaken with a witch. In this world, a witcher is a traveling monster slayer for hire, mutated and trained from an early age to slay the monsters that plague the world. Everything from wyverns, ice giants, tentacle things, all different kinds of monsters, like this one, or that one. The first story, The Voice of Reason, functions as a frame story, the chapters of which appear between the other stories as a lead-in, with each story being Geralt reflecting on some previous adventure. These books are heavily based on Slavic mythology as well as a handful of others, and a good dose of classic fairy tales. You'll pick up on quite a few retellings in this collection, and while I generally feel like fairy tale retellings are kind of overdone, here they manage to seamlessly fit into this world. One of my favorites is the story titled A Grain of Truth, where Geralt comes across a mansion in the forest and soon comes face to face with the mansion's owner, who's been cursed with a beastly appearance. This story is based on Beauty and the Beast, and you'll find more unusual retellings based on Snow White, Cinderella, and a few others that all have some type of twist.
Snow White!
Name's Geralt. What can I do for you?
Geralt is one of my favorite fantasy characters. He's a professional. He tries not to meddle in politics or trivial things, though they often fall into his path. His job is to slay monsters and get paid for doing so. But while a character like this could easily be bland personality-wise, Geralt is actually quite complex. He lives by his own set of codes. He'll kill a monster for money, but if the monster isn't evil, he'll spare it. For the most part, he chooses to take the path with the least resistance or violence. But his kind are considered outcasts in society. Most common folk believe witchers to be emotionless mutants that are no longer human. So he often has to deal with outright hostility and discrimination in varying degrees, getting paid meager sums for his work. But we, the reader, know he actually does have a lot of emotion. It's all in the small introspective moments, where he struggles for relevance in a world that needs him less and less as there's fewer monsters left to kill. By helping rid the world from monsters, he's slowly creating a world that no longer needs him or wants him in society. But despite what most people think of him, he does gain some close friends, and a lot of the comic relief comes from the infamous poet and bard named Dandelion. Dandelion kind of reminds me of a fantasy medieval version of Barney from How I Met Your Mother.
Are you crazy? Who do you think I am?
He's a lot of fun, he's a good friend for Geralt, and I liked their friendship in the games as well, but here in the books it manages to elevate and add more depth to their friendship, which I really enjoyed, and it's such a great friendship too, because they are characters that are quite opposite. Dandelion's humorous and upbeat personality juxtaposes with Geralt's more moody vibe in the best of ways. He'll often drag Geralt into trouble with his hasty actions, and if it wasn't for Dandelion, Geralt wouldn't have crossed paths with Yennefer. We do meet Yennefer near the end of the book, so I won't talk too much about her, but she is a love interest of Geralt's.
You smell wonderful.
Geralt, we're at a funeral.
You smell wonderful at this funeral.
And she plays a big part in the story going forward. She is a really powerful and great character. So yes, this is the book that has the origin story of how Geralt meets Yennefer, which is something I was always very curious about. Now, the writing, it was originally written in Polish, and I have heard that some of the elegance of the writing has kind of been lost in translation, but I think overall, it's very easy to understand, and I think the translator did a fantastic job. It is heavy on dialogue, which I haven't really seen in a book to this extent before, and occasionally it can seem like characters are rambling, but the dialogue does seem to help the book move along faster, in my opinion, and it's all complemented by some delightfully dry humor and clever exchanges between the characters. Now, while these books have a sort of grim, dark, and eerie feeling to them, it's surprising how many lighthearted and funny moments there really are. But with how dialogue-focused it is, there isn't a lot of world building, which personally, for an introduction to a fantasy series, that's something that I look for. I want to get a good visualization of the world, especially if I was completely new to the series. We get to see places like Novigrad and Sintra, but we don't really know their geographical position from each other, and the book, at least in my edition, doesn't have a map. Now, some of the monster descriptions are lacking as well, so you may find yourself Googling images for a Striga to get an idea of what Geralt is facing. And I think also, if I knew nothing about this book, I probably would be a little confused with the structure. Nowhere on this book's cover does it state that it's a short story collection. And some of the transitions are quite jarring, but some of them are a bit more smooth, so it would probably take me some time to discover that this was a collection of short stories if I wasn't already familiar with the material. But what we do get of this dark fairy tale-like setting is enough to keep you interested and wanting to read more, and all of these issues all come down to the fact that these were originally stories published in a magazine. These issues are solved as you get further into the series. The actual first book, Blood of Elves, does a much better job at introducing the world, in my opinion. Overall, this collection has mythology brimming with all kinds of creatures and a fairy tale world that both embraces and parodies the conventions of fables. At times, it feels like you're reading a more adult version of the Brothers Grimm stories. It has a gloomy vibe to it, but it also has its fair share of humor found in unexpected places. So the question is The Last Wish worth a read? I'll be honest, I don't think this collection of short stories was the best way to introduce this series. Should you skip it? No, I think it's still very much worth a read. It's fairly simple. It's a collection of Geralt's adventures with the occasional interlude. The main overarching plot hasn't really been revealed yet, but there is a lot of background information and details that set the foundations for this series. If you like the videos I make and want to help support the channel, then make sure to check out my Patreon. I've got multiple rewards on there, and we'll be adding more. That's it for now. Let me know in the comments if you want to see me make similar videos for each of the other books in the Witcher Saga. Also, let me know if you have read The Last Wish. If you haven't, I do have affiliate links in the description, which also help out the channel as well. And hey, why not let me know if you've played any of the video games? The Witcher 3: A Wild Hunt is by far one of my favorite games out there, and I believe today is when it launches on Nintendo Switch, depending on when I get this video up, but it should be out today. So if you haven't played it, I'd highly recommend picking it up. I've already played it on PC, but I am tempted to pick it up for Switch for the mere fact of portability. Playing a Wild Hunt portable would be amazing. And while I'm at it, why not let me know what you think about the upcoming Netflix adaptation? I'm keeping my expectations expectations low with this one. That way, if it flops, I won't be too disappointed, but if it does really good, then it will come as a welcome surprise. I am a little bit optimistic, but I'm not letting myself get too hyped.